right. All right. Hey, you guys. I am here with a very good friend of mine, Kristen.
It's me.
Yeah, that's you. How are you?
I'm good.
Doing good?
I had a stressful day with work,
Okay.
but that's life.
What do you do for work?
Too much. It might be too much to go into everything.
Okay.
I am the director of HR with a healthcare company. I also do consulting with some nonprofits. I also work at our church. I try to sleep every once in a while.
That's good.
And I watch my sister's kids sometimes.
Okay, cool. So you're busy. You know, that's kind of how I know you. And we actually know each other from we go to the same church, or we're part of the same church at Legacy Nashville. And you guys know I've talked a lot about that church. It's an awesome place. Yeah. And Kristen's amazing. And,
Who knew?
Yeah. And you've had quite the life.
I've had some life, a little bit.
A little bit.
So far. Trying to make it last longer.
Right. Don't we all? Yeah. Did you, I actually don't know, did you grow up in a Christian home?
I did, yeah. So, grew up in a Christian home. My parents were kind of like hippie-ish back like in the day before I was born. And then like they got saved before I was born. So like when I was born, they were like, everything was good. My like parents were really involved in the church and life was like hunky dory. But when I was about 10-ish, somewhere around there, 10 or 11 years old, my mom had a history with like alcohol, drug abuse, and she had gotten sober before I was born, but her brother killed himself. And so she relapsed really bad, and so kind of things fell apart family-wise quite a bit during that time. But yeah, so my parents got divorced shortly after that, and
when you're like 10, 11.
Yeah, it was more like 12 by that time. They tried to work through things for a couple of years, but yeah, and then, but like, yeah, I mean, my dad and I are very close, and my parents still are believers. My mom just struggles with stuff, but yeah, and it's obviously when something difficult happens, it's pretty likely you're going to go to, you know. You know, everybody uses different things to numb themselves, you know. Yeah. And alcohol is just one of them. Yeah,
so,
that's true.
Yeah, and then, then what happened a little bit later?
A little bit later. So, I mean, long story, super short.
We're not going to be able to fit in all your life, I'm sorry.
No, but just so how I got there. But so during that time, my dad got remarried. I had because of the issues with my mom and everything else, lots of different things, had a lot of abandonment, a lot of rejection issues, tons, just total rejection and abandonment that I just carried. And I got married really young, because that's what my people in my family do. They get married super young. I was 19 when I got married.
19? I
was really young. I was a baby.
What was it like? Had you known the guy a long time? Or was
we were high school sweethearts. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We had known each other since high school and got married. Very much I got married out of a really broken place. So just no one else is going to love me. No one else has been there for me like he has. So if I want to get married, this is probably it. This is my only option, and so should just do it. Yeah. You
didn't feel like you had any other options, basically, and that you were
if I wanted to be married, I felt like I didn't. People, it sounds so ridiculous when I say it out loud. But I definitely believed that I had a window to be able to get married, and between if I was 22 and not married, that was it. It's gonna be an old maid.
Right.
Which is really funny saying out loud. I know 22-year-olds, and I'm
I'm way over the hill then.
Yeah.
It's too late for me.
At this point, you're just an old maid.
Yeah. I basically am.
Not a bachelor, an old maid.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
So I really just, I carried that belief. And so, and like I said, my sister got married at 17. My other sister got married at 19. My mom was 18 or 19. I mean, people get married really young in my family. So it was
it's just part of the expectation?
Yeah, I don't actually think they expected that. There wasn't pressure to do it, but I pressured myself to do it, if that makes sense. In order to, again, I just felt okay, well, if I don't get married by this age, then I won't ever get married. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how was that then when you got married at 19?
Well, the problem is that both of us, my ex and I, both carried a lot of damage and a lot of hurt into our relationship. So it was really rough. I often say that it takes two people to mess up a marriage. I mean, with exceptions. Like, there are definitely, like, extreme abuse cases where someone's life is in danger, and that's a whole other issue. And so, like, it's not to make light of, like, it's not to make light of things like that. Like,
no.
There are definitely situations where it's not. But I would say for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, everything, involved, it takes two people. And so, I definitely, it's one of those, like, I carried a lot of baggage into it, where I know that I hurt him as much as what he hurt me, if that makes sense. Like, we were both really broken people who hurt each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the marriage is, well, it's the two of you. There's no magic formula. Like, I think a lot of people think, like, well, when I get married, my issues are it's going to get better as long as we just get married.
Yeah. Like,
make it permanent.
Yeah, you think, like, oh, I won't be alone anymore, and, like, someone will love me, and, I mean, use it to fill voids, if that makes sense. Like, I think a lot of people, like, look at getting married as an ultimate goal, and so, like, you use it to fill voids, I think, at times. And, and people give you warnings before you get married. Everyone does. Everyone's like, it's going to be rough, or it's going to be tough, like, you're going to have this, and you're like, yeah, but we love each other. Like, everyone,
we'll work it out.
Yeah. And, like, yes, while love is great, there's, like, actual, like, it is tough. It is hard. Like, it's not, like, not to paint an ugly picture of marriage, but it's work. And, like, anything that's worth something, I tell people this all the time, like, anything that has, like, value, you have to work for it. Like, things that are really genuinely worth something don't just, like, come easy and get handed to you, so
they don't happen on their own without intentionality.
Yeah. And so it's real work. But
so so you were married how long to this guy?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
So by 21 you're divorced.
Yeah. And just, I mean, not to even go into all the details, but very much like
what did that do to you? What did that feel like?
It felt very empty. It felt very, like, even though things were really bad, and that's one of the things I've worked and spoken with a lot of people who've walked through either thinking of getting divorced or getting divorced kind of since then. And people oftentimes think, like, if we get divorced, it'll be better. Like, I can't live like this. And there is a certain aspect that sometimes, like, it's unhealthy, and being in something unhealthy is not okay. It's not good. But I mean, I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter how unhealthy it is and how painful it is. If you walk through divorce, it will be painful. Even in, like, if you think, well, nothing can be worse than this, like, there's a reason that they say, like, marriage is two people becoming one, and that when you get divorced, it really is splitting up one person into two again. And then when you physically do that, like, there's actual pain involved. And so, I mean, it's, no matter who you are, it is excruciating pain. Even while you're preparing, if you're separated, while you're preparing for divorce, oftentimes it feels like, oh, well, I already feel like I'm divorced already. I'm living this way. But it's not, until you do it, like, it's not the same. And it's very painful. So, like, long story short, we both, like I said, we both really hurt each other in various ways. Like, I totally own my part. And
no, totally.
a lot of people talk about, like, oh, well, he was like this or he was that way. And it's like, I really hurt him just as much. I mean, it was one of those things.
Yeah, that's very mature to own up to your, this is my part, which is the only part you can fix.
Yeah. And so I divorced, felt really, like, scary and empty, and I mean, I'm 21. Like, you're already young, so I'm young, 21, but you feel like, I felt like a 30-year-old, like, and now being 30. Let me tell you, I'm like,
the same age.
We are the same age.
We're matching.
Yeah, but and now I'm like 30 is not even that old, but at 21, it feels like you're, like, damaged goods. If getting divorced, it felt like this, like I meet people my age. I would meet guys my age, 21, 22, like, young guys. And they find out I was divorced, and it was just like, it felt like baggage. It just felt like, what in the world? Like, that's way too much. That's too much for me. You're too much. So, and I felt like that. Even,
like, just friends or guys? What do you mean?
Guys who maybe, like,
they were, like, dating?
Like, interested in seeing about dating. Like, you hang out, it's like no big deal. But then they find that out, and it's like, They get really funny and distant, like funny stuff like that. And
all of a sudden they're not so interested anymore.
Yeah. And part of it was probably in my head, but there were definitely there were a couple actual instances where it was really it was like that. But
sucks.
Yeah, but I mean it's so you take actual experiences like that mixed with like already feeling that way. You feel like shame and you feel like damaged, and you also have this other baggage, that comes into like, why I got married in the first place. There was like that baggage on top of like divorce baggage. It was intense.
Yeah. And what did that do like to your relationship with God at the time?
Right in the midst of getting divorced, I was really angry with God. I mean, I was extremely angry with him. I grew up, like I said, just very involved in my church.
Good
really,
Christian girl.
Yeah, really good Christian girl. Like I did everything right. Like everything right. Down to like drinking before I was 21, like didn't happen. Like really, really innocent, good Christian girl. And I remember like saying to God, like, you didn't hold up your end of the bargain here. So like, I'm just going to make myself happy. And so I spent some time doing that. And that really was bad. That ended really bad. So
just got into some relationships and stuff.
Yeah, I got into one that was really unhealthy, super worse.
Okay.
And anyway, ended up like kind of crawling out of all of that. And just kind of like coming back to God in this like really intense way of just like, I'm super desperate. Like, I don't even know what to do. And just like clung to like Jesus in the midst of that. Like nothing I had experienced. And I felt like for the first time, like Jesus genuinely encountered me in such a personal way. And I remembered like my dad, having been divorced, he, oftentimes people who get divorced like rush back into another relationship or rush into getting married again. And I remember my dad saying to me, like, whatever you do, don't rush into another relationship. Take at least 1 to 2 years off. He was like, because he's like, most people don't do that, and you end up in bad you don't deal with your stuff, basically.
Yeah,
you
just gonna make the same mistakes all over again.
Yeah. So I remember like taking that to heart, and then being met by Jesus and like actually having him say, like, I want to take you close to me, and I actually want to like love on you, and I don't want you to like, don't pursue a relationship other than me right now. Like, I want you to pursue my heart, and I want to pursue your heart. Like, I was actually flying to Paris when this all happened. It was like a crazy encounter. I had already kind of been going through a lot of inner healing with God during this time, and was like totally in this amazing place and just pursuing God. And I ended up with the opportunity to go to Paris with like everything paid for except for my plane ticket. And my friend worked at the airport, so I was able to fly to why do I keep saying Paris? France. I was in Nice. I was able to fly round trip for like $400. It's like something really cheap. Like, and so it was like a spur of the moment. I get on this plane. I'm going. This is my first trip to Europe ever. And like in the middle of it, I was just like speaking with God, and like I never like had like a vision, so to speak, like this. It was like totally nothing I've ever experienced, but everything went black around me, and I could just like see Jesus, and he was sitting there showing me where he'd been throughout my whole life, and every hard place, everything I ever went through.
Wow.
Really intense stuff. And him just holding me in it, and him saying, he's like, I wanted to show you what it means to like be my bride. Like, and he's like, I'm taking you to France on like a honeymoon experience to like reconnect with me, and for us to like.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He's like, I want you to feel loved, and like you've never felt love before. And through these next 2 years of just you and I being together, I'm going to show you how you deserve to be loved, so that when you find the right person, when you find who your next husband's supposed to be, you have a standard which to compare it all to.
Wow.
So.
That
it was awesome.
That's really awesome. Seriously. So then you were single for not that long.
Couple years.
Years. Okay.
So I did. I took like 2 years.
Good.
Yeah, it was right at 2 years. And by that time, I actually was on my way to like YWAM, Youth of the Mission in Romania, and I was like, going to Romania. I had felt like I was supposed to do that before I got married the first time.
Yeah. Okay.
And so like that was just kind of returning to doing that. So I was working like crazy, saving money to go to Romania. And during that time, I met my now husband, Trevor.
Who's awesome.
Yeah, he is.
I love Trevor.
We were working at a restaurant together, and but we like didn't even talk to each other for the first several months.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, like at all. I actually knew several of his friends, but he never would like say hi to me. He never even smiled. Actually, I tease him a lot about this. He just always looked like all the time, and then like later on, he like said something.
He can look pretty serious at times.
He told me later on, he's like, it always really hurt my feelings that you would talk to all my friends and you never said anything. I was like, you could have just started with a hi, you know, like welcoming. So anyway. And
he was very young at the time. He was younger than you.
Oh, yeah. He still is younger than me. He hasn't
He always will be. He was like, what, 19?
He was 19. Yeah. Although he lied to me about his age. We still joke about that too.
Of course he did.
Yeah. So he tried to tell me he was 21 or 22.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was like, no. And he was like, okay, you're right. I'm 20. And I was like, no, he said, you're right. He's like, I'm 21. And I was like, I don't think that's right. And he was like, okay, fine. I'm 20. And I was like, okay. And then he was like, in 2 weeks. And I was like, so you are 19.
Wow.
But
that's funny. So
yeah.
So he. What was his reaction when you told him, like, hey, I've been divorced? Like once, because I'm assuming like there's some interest after a while.
Yeah. So eventually we ended up like something with work. We had to work like a banquet at the same time, and so we ended up like sitting and talking all night and getting to know each other. And like shortly after that, we like hung out a little bit. And he was like, I never really had friends that were girls, like genuinely like, hey, you're like a good friend of mine who's a girl, not just like an acquaintance at church. And so we started like hanging out, which was great. So yeah, once we started like realizing we liked each other, you know, he knew a little bit about my past, my background, because I knew several of his friends.
Right.
But it was really, I think what was really refreshing for me was like his reaction to finding out, like, you know, I was been divorced, and not just divorced, but all of my stuff. Yeah. He was the only guy who there was like something, or had been like on dates, or we liked each other, who it didn't freak him out like remotely. It was for him, he was just like, we all have stuff, like we all have our stuff. He was like, I had bad relationships in my past, and I'm like, but it's not the same. And he's like, yeah, maybe not, but I mean,
yeah, because what it is, it's just like, you know, being really freaked out by that stuff, you know. And I understand that there's, you know, of course, stuff, you can find out stuff that's like, wow, this is kind of heavy and difficult, but it's like, a lot of it, you know, comes down to pride, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of, like, I mean, I knew, that's how you knew that he was, right? The guy. Yeah. Because he was like, okay, he loves me.
Yeah, that was
with all of my stuff, not just like this perfect picture of someone that doesn't exist, because like you said, we all have stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, it was just, he very much. I remember like asking God, like, I want him or whoever it is, like to see me the way you see me, and he would say stuff like the exact same words and the same phrasing that I would hear God say to me, like, you know, when I would spend time with God. Yeah, like he would use the same words, he would use the same phrases, and it was one of those where I realized, like, oh wow, like, that's it. Like and his picture of me was very much not this like fake, like overly sunshine, like there's nothing wrong with you, just very much like the heart of God, you know, of like, I see all your stuff, and it doesn't change what I see in you. It doesn't change who you are. It doesn't change who your identity is. And it doesn't change like who the Lord's created you to be. And that's who you really are. And it was like, that's true love. Yeah. Right there. It was good. And also you've dealt with your stuff. You weren't like that person anymore, right? Yeah. No, like I said, did tons of inner healing during like those 2 years. Yeah. And it just got like wrecked by God. And so, it was. There's always the wisdom if you meet someone that's, has been divorced, you're not necessarily judgmental, just because if someone still has like a lot of issues, it might not be it's not a good idea to get into. Oh, yeah. I mean, I've seen that with people where it's like they really are just going from one thing to the next and And the difference was like you were willing to work through all the hurt, face the pain. And let Jesus love you in that place. Yeah. I mean, I say all the time to Trevor, like I could not actually be a wife to him if I hadn't have had that like inner healing, and we would never have made it to being married 5 years. Like I don't even know if we would have made it to getting married. Like it would have, because so many things could easily trigger stuff. There are tons of situations that he, you know, could say something that would just trigger in me like past stuff, and I would respond to it not out of the reality but out of my pain. And so now, like, but being able to have worked through that, I can recognize like, oh, like normally I used to have like responded this way. Like it's totally Jesus that I don't, you know?
That's awesome. And you've been married 5 years now.
5 years.
Yay.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just like, and you're just such a solid couple, like a church. You can just tell that you're different. You just work together as a team.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those couples that are really fun for me as a single guy to hang out with, because not all couples are necessarily fun to hang out with.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. We love our single friends. We have lots of single friends actually.
Yeah.
So
you do.
we should like host a mixer for all you guys.
Yeah, maybe that's the way to go, right?
Yeah, we don't try and get involved with matching everybody up, but you know, if we put you all in one room and just see what happens, I mean,
right.
That's all we can do.
Yeah, that's so good. So yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's so many good nuggets in there with your testimony. I think it's just a huge testimony of just Jesus' ability to heal us up and like fill those empty places and the hurtful places in our lives.
Yeah, and just how like we need that, even if we've never been divorced, even if you're thinking about getting married. Like again, like I should never have gotten married the first time without dealing and recognizing like, wow, this is like hurt. This is stuff. This isn't something that I'm even meant to live with. I remember like thinking when I was really young, like all this pain, everything I'd gone through has made me who I am, and like it's just shaped me, and I'm just supposed to like carry it, and that could be painful. I remember like thinking those things, and it was like, you know, like now I look back and I'm like, that's such bogus BS.
Yeah.
Like
totally.
Like I hurt people because I decided that I should just live with this, you know.
Right,
like,
and I guess it becomes a source of comfort because you don't see a way out. Like probably so.
Yeah.
So well, thank you so much. I sure enjoyed it. Hope you guys did. Yeah, good. I'm sure you guys did. I know that there's going to be people watching that have gone through very similar things or in that place, you know, of like dealing with stuff or thinking about getting married. So just like your testimony and story is super helpful. So I just like you as a person a lot.
Yeah,
We're
great.
Buddies.
We are. We even matched.
Exactly.
At the same time.
Yeah, I do. I actually said that earlier, so but whatever.
True. If he had his hair down, we're both blonde. I mean,
I had to do something to stand out, you know.
You might not actually know which one of us is which in this.
True. All right, you guys. I love you and bless you. Thanks again, Kristen.
Yeah. Love you guys too.
Yeah. Bye.